Good evening and welcome to the 2023 Civic Leadership Academy Graduation Ceremony. My name is Sadia Sindhu, and I am the Executive Director of the University of Chicago Center for Effective Government here at the Harris School of Public Policy. We are so thrilled to be here today at the Keller Center, home of the Harris School and the Harris Family Foundation King Harris Forum, to celebrate the accomplishments of the 2023 cohort of Civic Leadership Academy Fellows. We're fortunate for the opportunity to bring together this cohort of 30 civic leaders, with so many from our broader community, both in person and via live stream, including CLA alumni, our faculty, our advisors, and our champions of this program, our partners from the Harris School and across the university, and especially the friends, the family, and supporters of our fellows. You deserve a round of applause. I'd like to begin today's program by extending a warm welcome and a word of thanks to tonight's distinguished speakers and some of our most important partners in this work. You'll hear today from Andrea Sáenz, President of the Chicago Community Trust. We are thrilled that Andrea is here today to highlight the partnership between CEG and the Trust, and we are so grateful for their continued support of our work to engage Chicago's civic leaders. We are also delighted to hear from Dilnaz Waraich, President of the WF Fund, whose commitment to civic empowerment and community building has propelled CLA forward for many years. Professor William Howell, the Director of the Center for Effective Government, will also speak to you this evening. In addition to being a preeminent scholar and expert on issues we grapple with every day at the Civic Leadership Academy, he has been with our CLA and fellows every step of the way, this year and for the past 9 years, as the program has grown and evolved into this incredible thing that it is today, a critical part of our work at CEG. It's rare to find a faculty member so deeply invested in the work of practitioners and local leaders, and who truly understands and values their pivotal role in the pursuit of a more effective government and democracy reform. He's a trusted colleague and a true partner in this work, and I'm so thrilled you'll get to hear from him tonight. And finally, you'll hear directly from a member of our CLA community, a graduating fellow, J.C. Aevaliotis, Program Officer of the Polk Brothers Foundation. I know he will speak to you on behalf of the entire community of more than 270 CLA past and present fellows, many of whom who are here tonight. I want to say a word of thanks to all the faculty members and civic leaders here in Chicago and in Paris who came before our fellows to share just a snippet of their life's work. I'm also grateful to my colleagues at the Harris School and the University of Chicago and the numerous supporters and partners of CLA who are joining us either here in Hyde Park tonight or online. You are all a part of what makes CLA so special. I also want to express our immense gratitude to our funders whose generosity makes CLA possible. They are the Harris Family Foundation, the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust, the Walder Foundation, the WF Fund, and the Harris School of Public Policy. And also, I want to extend a very special thank you to the U.S. Embassy in Paris and the French Consulate in Chicago, who graciously welcomed us, helped us to see more clearly than we had the city that we were visiting, and for sharing their beautiful space and for their camaraderie and conversation. Additional thanks must go to the entire Center for Effective Government team, especially Hopi Melton, who has so thoughtfully and with love and care curated this experience that we're celebrating here tonight. Hopi, the fellows know this, and we all know this, but I'd like everyone in this room to take a moment to appreciate all that you have done for this cohort and in service of this program in CEG. Finally, I want to thank everyone here who is here with us tonight for playing such a pivotal role in the lives and journeys of our fellows and the Civic Leadership Academy program. We depend on your support and your partnership. CLA is what it is because of you. I should also mention that the future of CLA depends on you as well, which is why we strongly encourage you to think of capable civic leaders in your lives and in your work, and refer to them to our 2024 cohort. If you have folks in mind, you'll find a nice QR code on the back of your program. When I spoke to many of you 6 months ago at our 2023 welcome ceremony, I spoke a bit about how CLA has evolved over time, morphing from an experiment of sorts, an investment in the civic infrastructure of our city, and in many ways, a bet on the individual and collective capacity of people like you to make change, into a thriving, vibrant network of leaders with a clear vision and a proof point for how your individual leadership development can transform into something bigger than yourselves and impact your organizations, your agencies, our city and county for the better. I also spoke about the journey that was in front of you, the 2023 cohort, and how it was filled with promise and possibility, but also with trials and tribulations along the way. As we sit together here to reflect on that experience, your journey in leadership alongside your colleagues, I suspect that you found both things to be true. I want to speak today about how these past 6 months offer you a model for how to carry on the journey of civic leadership and how you might approach the challenges that our leaders and democracy face not just in Chicago, but across the nation. Back in January, I described CLA, as I often do, as a one-of-a-kind program, but not for the reasons that you might expect. Yes, it is unique to bring together so many accomplished leaders, hard at work in different spots and corners of the civic sector across our city and county. It is unique in its optimism and its hope for the future of civic leadership, and the trust that we place in all of you and that you place in us, and the investment we make together in honing the kinds of qualities we expect from our leaders. But ultimately, CLA is hard work, and that makes it unique too. It is unique to ask so much of our leaders to think not only about their own development, but the development of their colleagues, the health of their organizations, and the strength of our city and county civic infrastructure. It is unique to expect fellows to confront head-on challenges and complexities that they face in their work and in the policy problems that abound across our city. And it is unique to ask fellows to bring their whole selves, their identities, their experiences, their contradictions, and all to a table that can feel at once too big and too small, too tense and too daunting. But fellows, you have risen to that challenge, embracing the unique discomfort time and again. You have read and reflected and debated and argued, all in service not just of yourselves, but your colleagues and your city and your county. You've all taken a seat at the table and brought your experience and perspectives to bear on the assumptions of others, the assumptions you hold about yourselves, and the challenges that you confront every single day. Not because it was easy, but because it was hard, and because it's important, because it's essential to the work that lies ahead. CLA is unique because of the muscles you first flexed in these 6 months are ones that you will continually flex after the program. Nearly 270 alumni can speak directly to this, and so can their accomplishments in advancing equity and improving the life of Chicagoans. They do so all while overcoming naysayers, navigating through forceful headwinds, and peeling back layers of institutional dysfunction. They are proof that the skills and relationships that you develop here will stay with you and benefit you in your service to our city and its people. They will also serve as an antidote to those who reduce Chicago to staggering statistics and view its leadership as mired in division, its challenges as insurmountable, and its institutions as irreversibly broken. They also happen to be an essential ingredient in the pursuit of a more effective, a more inclusive, and stronger democracy, even amidst great uncertainty, daunting challenges, and long odds. At the Center for Effective Government, we have lofty, ambitious, big goals. We seek to improve government's capacity to serve us and to help us solve the biggest challenges that we face as a society by advancing reform and fostering democracy. There are times that I and many other well-meaning people, other leaders like you across the country, and our partners in this work who feel the weight of this task. We grow jaded and pessimistic, drowning in the complexity of the problem. Change can feel far off, and thriving democracy can feel out of reach. And yet, I constantly turn to the Civic Leadership Academy, to you all, as an antidote to that feeling, a proof point that the possibility of our task together, a critical piece of the solution to a challenge of a generation, and the reason why CLA is integral to the work of the Center for Effective Government. We know that in order to effect change within our institutions and to the contours of our democracy, we need leaders who are not only thinking about those structural problems, but who can make concrete the idea that institutional reform is a gateway to the kind of policy solutions that you all seek in your lines of work every single day. We need leaders like you who can confront the messy contradictions of ourselves and our city, who through collaboration, humility, creativity, and optimism find ways to make progress, whose rich experiences add depth and nuance and help us forge a path together, step by step, towards meaningful and transformational change. You are an example to leaders across the country who share in that goal and seek a path to it, myself included. Our challenges will not disappear, nor will their complexities resolve. But as you leave us today, we're confident that we can lean on you and that you will lean on each other in that pursuit. Congratulations to the Civic Leadership Academy class of 2023, and the very best of luck to each of you. We at the Center for Effective Government and the Harris School of Public Policy are honored to be doing this work alongside you. Thank you. With that, I'm delighted to introduce the President and CEO of Chicago Community Trust, Andrea Sáenz. Before becoming the president of the trust in 2022, Andrea was a chief operating officer. She has held numerous other roles as first deputy commissioner at the Chicago Public Library, as well as chief of staff to Chicago Public Schools CEO, policy advisor for the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, and as executive director of ASE, a national nonprofit working to increase Latinx entry and success in professional careers. Please join me in welcoming Andrea to the stage.
Thank you, Sadia, and thanks everyone for inviting me to join your celebration this evening. It's such a pleasure to be here, joined by so many distinguished guests, partners, alumni, and Chicago community leaders as we celebrate the graduation of a new cohort of Chicago Leadership Academy. You've done so much over these past 6 months. You've had the conversations necessary to promote collaboration across sectors. You've learned from world-class educators and heard new viewpoints that hopefully challenged the way that you came into the program thinking the world worked. You've gone abroad. I'm so jealous. You went to Paris. My God. Why didn't anybody invite me there? But you've learned about innovative approaches to problems that face us all as people. You've completed your capstone projects, and we hope you've come out of the program inspired to do even more to improve the lives of everyone who calls Chicago home. In recognition of this achievement, I'm going to ask you to do two things. First, give yourselves a round of applause. And now, please turn around and look at the people who helped you get here today, those who supported you through this learning experience, and give them a round of applause. We know it was not easy to juggle your day job with this learning. So we at the Chicago Community Trust are committed to strengthening the Chicago region by trying to tackle the root causes of the things that are holding us back. And as one of the country's oldest and largest, so second oldest, third largest community foundations, we've been working to improve the lives of Chicagoans for over 100 years. And it's through that lens that we have been such proud supporters of the Chicago Leadership Academy since its inception in 2014. You play such an important role in our collective capacity to move the needle on things that matter. What I've learned by having many fellows as colleagues and friends and watching the program evolve is that CLA strengthens the ties between the nonprofit and government sectors, critically important for us to get work forward. And in a city with such promise and such huge challenges, particularly for communities of color and those that are economically disadvantaged. And in Chicago, unfortunately, those two are often one and the same still. It's essential that we use this multi-sector lens to figure out how we get out of these issues, and that we really challenge ourselves to think differently and to think from outside of our own perspective and training. So, it's been wonderful to see that CLA is doing just that. It brings together civic leaders across different sectors. It aims to assemble a cohort that really represents our city, which is important and sadly still unique for many such programs. And it brings together people working on critical issues, from housing to climate justice, but all with our communities in mind. What I've learned is that fellows are empowered to speak up on behalf of their communities, especially those communities whose voices are often left out of policymaking decisions and kind of left out of big resource allocation tables. And it's all in service of this shared goal, right, of a better Chicago. I'm going to share kind of a weird story from very early in my career. Right out of college, I was working for the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, founded by Jane Addams in 1913. The U.S. section then, in the 1990s, decided to tackle the war on drugs as an issue that would rally people behind more just policies, not only at home, but also towards Latin America. I had studied Latin American studies in college, so I came on to try to figure out how to make the argument, the policy argument, to change U.S. policy in this area. It was very controversial, very sort of fraught. And one of the things that I was asked to do was organize a speaking tour. And it was a speaking tour of women from 3 Andean countries, the largest coca-producing countries in the world, and women from the U.S., from communities who'd been impacted by crack cocaine epidemic. We went to the UN General Assembly. It was a really interesting, kind of eye-opening experience for me to go across the country with these women and learn about their life stories. There's one story that sticks out for me all the time, and I think about it every day as I do work of all kinds. And it's this woman from Bolivia who said, we need alternative economic development opportunities in our community if we're to turn away the money that people are offering us for the coca leaf that we produce. And for years, we've been trying to be part of the decision-making process about what kinds of economic development opportunities should be brought to our country. And instead, what we get is a shipment of pigs. Because a German economic development organization, very well-intentioned, decided that that would be very lucrative if we were to raise pigs and sell them, and that would be our business. What they didn't understand is that, I live in a part of the country that has really wet soil. So the pigs immediately get rot hoof, which for female pigs impacts their fertility. So basically, all of this work, all of this effort, all of this good intention just went to waste because the very people who were experts in their own issues were never consulted before these big resource allocation decisions were made. So I share this with you hoping, that you will add that weird story to your toolkit now so that as you move on in your careers to shape policy, to shape programs, to shape things that are going to make our city better, you never send pigs to the Bolivian wetlands. Okay, yes, please, never do that. So I also just want to say a bit about the Center for Effective Government, because the CLA has really become a cornerstone for the center. By connecting community leaders, activists, students, journalists, policymakers. And again, I go back to, we need all these perspectives coming together towards a shared direction if we're going to make any progress. We've seen time and time again, people take a single issue lens and just really not be able to get anywhere. I'm also thrilled to see the alumni here, so many alumni here. It's a Friday evening, you could be anywhere. Right? But the connection among the fellows, the alumni, the Harris School is really magical, right? This network is strong and continues to get stronger. So I'll just close by saying, affecting lasting change, right, is going to mean overcoming barriers, working across administrations, working across election cycles. It'll require the kind of relationships that it looks like you've already built with one another and you're poised to build with the alumni and the other people kind of in concentric circles outside the network. Chicago really needs more leaders like you who have been prepared in the ways that the CLA has prepared you and who are committed to the kinds of work that you're already working on. So the design of the program, taking people who are already leading and giving them additional tools is just really a brilliant combination. So with the completion of your fellowship and your place in the CLA network, we will all be a step closer to a better Chicago. I really am grateful to you for having put in this work because it feels like it is an investment that you've made not only in yourselves, but really in our collective well-being. Congratulations and the best of luck to you as you write our next chapter. I don't think I'm going to introduce you. I think I'm just going to say hi. Welcome to the podium.
Thanks. That was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Will. Hi. Oh, it's good to be here, and it's good to see all of you after 6 months. I thought I would just remind you what you did, and let all of you know what they did, because it's been a trip. We brought out Heather Caruso, who is a psychologist from UCLA first, for us to think about issues involving diversity and dialogue. And then we brought Harry Davis, who's a sociologist who works in the business school, to introduce a theater metaphor to think about the capacity that you all have, the expansive capacity that you all have to affect meaningful change in your leadership. And then we brought Jessica Thebus, who is a director from Northwestern, to think about the nature of change, and because you all work in a space that's defined by change. We then reflected upon definitions of leadership and tried to put them into conversations with theories of social movements, and for that we brought out Margaret Brower, who's a political scientist at Harvard. And we moved on to then think about issues involving ethics and the obligations of leadership. And we didn't do that in the abstract. We did a careful reading of Bartleby the Scrivener with Ken Warren, who's an English professor here at the University of Chicago. And then explored the troubled and complex notion of an Olympics of suffering with Armando Maggi, who is a professor of Italian literature. Moving on, we spent a day thinking broadly about issues involving identity, and again, not in abstractions, but by looking squarely at what went on in the 1919 race riots and its aftermath, and for that we had as our guide Adam Green, who's a historian here at the University of Chicago, and then turned to fights over contested categories, legal categories of sex and gender with a law professor, Marianne Case. You can see we're all over the place, and that's, I think, week 3, and we got a long way to go. Let me say a few more. I'm gonna keep going. Stephen Tellis, who studies conservative legal movements at Johns Hopkins, came out to encourage us to think about what long-term investments look like for systemic change. John McCormick, who is a political theorist, came to encourage us to, by reading Machiavelli and Saul Alinsky, to think about strategies for conserving in one instance and then disrupting in the next power relationships in the service of change. Ethan Buenito-Mesquita, who's a game theorist, who's also the dean here, came forward to encourage us to think about those matters of measurement that you all have to write grants about. Here are my deliverables, and to think about how at once important they are, but also how problematic they can be, and on and on. I'm going to stop because it keeps going. We've got people from the law school. We've got people talking about intergenerational trauma from Colorado, political theorist with expertise on Syria to think about misinformation and disinformation. So what are we doing? Like, we're all over the place. Like, what are we doing? Let me start with what we're not doing, which is not leading with or trying to inculcate definite or preconceived notions of the correct definitions of leadership, or handing down lessons on the exact and precise practices of leadership that you all should be adopting as a matter of course. Or certainly not to dictate what the exact policy is. This isn't a fly-by-night leadership operation that overpromises and shucks policy solutions. It's a space for serious-minded, hard reflection in contested spaces. And we need to recognize it as such and to see the work that you all do, not to cheapen the work that you all do, but to see the value and the importance of the work that you all do by recognizing it for what it is. We're also an institution and a practice that's embedded in a policy school, in a Center for the Effective Government that's embedded in a policy school that's also embedded here at the University of Chicago. And in that sense, we're not coming forward, while not being prescriptive, we're not coming forward in a way that's indifferent to values or to commitments. And I want to identify two that I think sit at the center of the work that we do, and the kind of community that we're trying to build here. And the first is rooted in and is defined in many ways by humility. I'm not talking about the thin humility that forms a coating of modesty to encapsulate pride or ambition. And I'm certainly not talking about the misguided humility that hushes and scolds. It's not it. I'm talking about a deep humility that holds firm and fast and that orients your outlook and sits at the center of your being. It's the humility born of an appreciation that all of our educations are incomplete, that our measures of the empirical world, our models of the empirical world, always come with noise and often come with bias, and that finding enduring solutions to trenchant problems requires adaptation and openness, allowing for the possibility of discovery and a carefully calibrated attention to trade-offs. And so at each turn in our conversations, we see an essential truth here, and then we say, but this contested by this other thing too, and how do we hold both and try to balance between them? And to do that effectively, to do that with impact, we got to proceed with humility and demand that others do so as well. We're not going to hack our way out of current democracy challenges. There's no panacea that's going to set things right once and for all. And there's no single savior on a stallion who's going to come to our rescue. Like, let's not hold out for that. Humility requires that we undertake the hard work and that we remain open to the possibility in some moments that we're wrong and that corrections are going to be needed. And we need each other to turn for guidance for those corrections. And that all along we pay close attention to the downstream effects of our worldly interventions, the effects that we may not have anticipated. But make no mistake, this kind of humility is also a source of tremendous strength. It allows us to see deeper into problems and to resist present fads and temptations and to avoid losing our way and to settle into the work at hand. And I think that's what we do here at the CLA. We settle into the work at hand. We don't have all the answers, but we also know that others don't have all the answers either. And so we make an enduring impact on the city that we love. In order to do so, we need to lift up voices, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also in order to hear and learn from what they have to say. It's not just about putting them at the table, it's about taking them seriously and learning from them and adapting our practices so from a position of humility so that we can turn this city into something better, the city that we love. That leads me to a second conviction that derives from our understanding of the prerequisites for change and the objects that we hope will sit at the center of your leadership efforts, which is this need for work on institutions. This morning we heard fellows present their final capstone projects, and they were fabulous. In these capstone projects, they don't merely think about large objectives that will improve and strengthen our city. They think squarely about institutional reforms that need to be adopted in order to improve our civic infrastructure, so that promising policies that right now are thwarted and subverted can be meaningfully lifted up and get traction in our politics. And then moving on to think about strategy for how we actually undertake that work. And I want to just identify for everybody what these reforms were. I mean, what we heard this morning were about a tech-enabled intervention. I use the language because that's what you all, who came up with that? You got it. Tech-enabled. Tech-enabled interventions intended to augment citizen involvement in Chicago's city council. Right? How do we bring a city council closer to their population's myriad? Tech-enabled. There it is. Reforms to standardize and thereby improve the transparency and equity of the city's project development process. Efforts to reestablish a citywide Department of the Environment, one that existed before but ought to be brought back. Efforts to streamline and rationalize the event permitting process, and an effort to integrate all sorts of important public health services. The institutions that we have inherited should be seen not as objects that require preservation. That's not our task at hand. We should see them as matters of choice. And we can make different choices. And we can alter those institutions and do so in ways that lift up voices, that unleash energies, and allow for productive change moving forward. And I think that sits at the center of, again, as our second commitment, along with humility, of the work that we mean to do. Such is the work of systemic, ambitious, enduring change. It's what it means to get to the root of a problem. So there they are, humility and institutional change. We're going to keep after it. What an honor to work with these people, who are committed to making the city better and brighter and more promising. Dilnaz, I get to introduce you. So let me say a few words about you, Dilnaz Waraich. He's the president of the WF Fund and a philanthropic advocate, a community builder, an educator, and an interfaith leader with more than 3 decades of experience in relationship building, cultural sensitivity, facilitation, spiritual engagement, and civic empowerment. A current fellow with the National Center for Family Philanthropy, Dilnaz also serves her her Chicago community as a trustee at the Catholic Theological Union, the Chicago Public Media, and the Pillars Fund. And as a vocal advocate, she is known for bringing awareness and recognition to multiple causes. She was instrumental in establishing the Community Collaboration Initiative, the Year of Learning, and the Muslim Collaborative Prizes, all of which were part of a 3-year community-based action research project hosted by Indiana University's Lilly School of Philanthropy. Thank you, Dilnaz, for being here. Yeah.
So thank you, Sadia, Andrea, and Will, for your inspirational words and grounding us into this space. My remarks today will be focused on an African proverb that drives the work that I do with nonprofits and with philanthropy. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Today is a tremendous day. As we gather here to celebrate the culmination of 6 transformative months of hard work, dedication, and growth, it is an honor to stand before you as you mark the completion of this journey through the Civic Leadership Academy. As I look into the sea of change makers, I reflect on how important you would have been as I was growing up in Chicago. So I came to Chicago when I was 2 years old from India. My dad wanted me to have choices. He knew as a woman in India, I probably wouldn't have had too many opportunities. However, growing up in Chicago was not always easy as a female, as a Muslim, and as an immigrant. I was a little different than the students around me in my public school system. When I went to school, my mom didn't pack me peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. She packed me an unda sandwich, an egg sandwich, which was filled with spices, and she put it in my tin lunchbox, and it smelled pretty bad by lunchtime. I would show up to school with oily coconut hair because my mom thought that was important for me to have as I got older. I also didn't celebrate Christmas or Easter, but my teachers didn't care. They asked me regularly, write about your Santa Claus story, write about your Easter story, so I just created stories. Amidst these differences, there were also times when kids would pelt me with rocks and tell me to go back to my country, which left me hurt, battered, but above all, confused. I thought this was my city. I often wondered, I thought I belonged to Rufus M. Hitch Elementary School. My teachers, my classmates, my neighbors, they never took time to hear my stories, to understand the culture of my dress, my food, my language, and those days still haunt me today. But they also created the resiliency and purpose that I have in the work that I do. The WF Fund uplifts the nonprofits to do philanthropic advocacy. So you must be asking, what does it mean to be philanthropic advocate? Our fund doesn't just write a grant and walk away. We partner with our organizations. We create opportunities for engagement sessions, leadership workshops, grant writing strategies, and enhanced leadership relationship building. I have a purpose in my work because I know how it feels to be told you don't belong. I also know how it feels when you're just not enough. I also know as change makers, your time at University of Chicago Harris School of Policy, you have learned the importance of the partnership and creating learning engagements. You have heard from scholars from the University of Chicago and beyond who have provided you with tools of thinking about your particular leadership. You have delved into critical issues and have spoken to communities and affected communities and explored innovative solutions. You've listened to the communities. You have done all this work in a world-class institution, which is taking you from the best of the university and is offering you a service of your own leadership and the work of your organizations. But remember, change doesn't happen quickly. Be gentle with yourself. Make sure that as you're doing this heavy lifting, you're also thinking about your self-care. This work requires perseverance, resilience, and unwavering commitment. It will demand you to step out of your comfort zone, challenge the status quo, and also to confront the injustices in our city. It will require you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I have no doubt that each one of you possesses the ability to create lifelong change. The Civic Leadership Academy has nurtured within you the seeds of leadership, empathy, and now it is your collective responsibility to nurture those seeds until they blossom into Chicago that is working collaboratively and focused on justice. Look around you. This is your community, and you do belong here, and you are just enough. Congratulations, class of 2023 CLA graduates. May your journey as leaders be filled with purpose, partnership, empathy, and the unwavering belief in the power of collective action. Now I get to the honor of introducing one of your graduating classmates to be our next speaker. J.C. Aevaliotis is a program officer at the Polk Brothers Foundation, leading arts education grant making and collaborating in the foundation's education and youth development strategies. In this work, JC collaborates frequently with colleagues in philanthropy, nonprofits, with the City Department of Cultural Arts and Affairs and Special Events, the Chicago Public School System, and many more. Prior to the Polk Brothers Foundation, JC was Director of Development at Marwin, a visual arts education nonprofit. JC facilitated strategic planning, shaped program evaluations, and helped launch the Complete Capital campaign that raised over $8 million. He has worked as a teaching artist and is active in Chicago's live lit community as a writer and performer, and serves as a board chair with the Paper Machete Show. He serves on the local school council for Alexander Graham Bell Elementary School and is an assistant coach for his little son's Little League baseball team. JC has run 7 marathons and is a PACE group leader for the Chicago Area Runners Association Summer Marathon Training, which starts tomorrow morning. So we'll all be there. He received a master's degree in religion and the arts from Yale Divinity School and a BA from Emory University. JC.
Thank you, Dilnaz. Thank you, Andrea. I am so grateful to be here with all of you today. So grateful for all of you, 2023 CLA Fellows. There are 3 of us in our cohort that couldn't be with us tonight, Natalie Barrera, Ricardo Lopez, and Jorge Valdivia. We are thinking of you and sending you lots of love. When I think of CLA, I am so deeply grateful. To our families sitting up there, thank you all. Our partners and children and parents and friends, all the people who support us through the big moments in our lives. This is a heavy lift. We are grateful to those around us who carried more over the last 6 months so that we could be present here. Thank you to my wife, Devin. Yeah. Thank you to my wife, Devin, and my incredible kids, Albie and Tilly. Hi, Albie and Tilly. Thank you to everyone that made it possible for us to do this, those with us here tonight and those who aren't. We are grateful for you. I also want to thank our employers. This is a huge time commitment. People in this cohort have some really important jobs. Thank you for the space and support to do this. My boss and friend, Yvette Cardona, is here tonight. Thank you, Yvette. Yeah, we can clap for my boss. That's cool. Thank you, Yvette, for tolerating both the flurry of emails from me at the end of the day on Thursday and then my radio silence every other Friday since January. Thank you, Yvette, and all of our employers for seeing the opportunity and the importance of this moment for all of us and our shared work in our city and in our county. And to the Center for Effective Government at the Harris School of Public Policy, most especially Will Howell, Sadia Sindhu, Hopi Melton, and Sammy Williams. Thank you. I've never been given anything like this in my career. This program has made me feel so deeply cared for. It is an extraordinary gift. This space and this time and these incredible people you surrounded us with. The amazing professors, each class that you heard about from Will, CLA alumni, and the fellows, this cohort. This is a lot of work, and you did it with grace and good humor and joy amidst very full lives and big jobs. Will and Sadia are at the top of their game, and CEG does huge stuff. Will won a Guggenheim Fellowship while we were here. And Sadia is doing this while also participating in the Aspen Global Leadership Network. And somehow you both and the unsinkable Hopi Melton and Sammy Williams also always showed up every Friday with us and for us. We are very, very, very grateful to all of you. And to the fellows, 2023, y'all are funny. Like really, really funny. When I think of CLA, I think of laughing with you all. I think of the joy in connecting with one another over too many glasses of wine in Paris, or over too many glasses of wine at the bar next door to the Keller Center. So many moments of laughter and levity before, during, after classes. The kind of laughter that is really recognition, a way of seeing and connecting with other people. You all are also brave in sharing your stories, the sometimes painful paths you took to get where you are right now, in lovingly pushing back, to calling people in the cohort into accountability and into community, and identifying moments when the program is working great and moments when it could be better, and calling to account the university that houses this program and the complicated, beautiful, wounded city in which all this is taking place, and recognizing that we, all of us, work in institutions and sectors that bear the marks of historical injustice and long-standing inequity. The fellows are 15 government representatives and 15 nonprofit representatives. It's a mix unlike anything I've ever experienced in my career. To hear from people working in law enforcement or healthcare, in city and county departments with whom I've never interacted, in nonprofits and sectors with whom I have no experience, some of whom I know well. CLA is a prolonged and intentional encounter across all kinds of difference. Differences in culture and multiple facets of identity and job and career stage and more. There were times when I discovered surprising commonalities, points of unexpected connection. And there were times when it was critical to acknowledge the utter particularity of someone else's experience. Both were extraordinary gifts. CLA has confirmed and shaken up things that I thought I knew about this work and the people who do it. I met some folks that are already helping me in my work, and a bunch of folks I know I'll work with someday, even if I don't quite know how or when. And CLA alumni are a part of that, shaping my work before the cohort and encouraging me to apply. To the alumni in the audience, thank you. Y'all show up. Years and years after you go through the program, you show up. I think I'm starting to understand why. Networks help. They're important, personally and professionally. That's not news. But this program has taught me some things about what networks look like, what they can do, how they happen, what makes them stick. I spoke some about laughter earlier and joy. I think these are critical to the best, most effective networks, at least for me. People you can laugh with, really laugh with, are often people with whom you can be vulnerable, people with whom you share values. That's a powerful basis for trust and sustained collaboration. You heard from Will. Over the last several weeks of the program, we completed capstone projects. We were split into groups to identify an important issue and a specific institutional reform to address that issue. Transformational change, but in very particular ways. My group chose resident engagement in city government, or lack thereof, and a reform that would require buy-in from the mayor, from city council, from the city clerk, lots of others, something small. Will, Sadia, and Hopi very thoughtfully laid out a step-by-step process for each of our groups to complete our project, involving a very little bit of class time in each of the last 4 or 5 CLA sessions. Sadia would say things like, don't think too hard about this. It's pretty simple. All you're doing is identifying the change you're trying to make, who the stakeholders are, whether they're opposed or in support or neutral, and what their incentives are. You have 15 minutes. Will would say, make it transformational. Something that moves the needle, but make it specific. And choose an interesting one. Do it with gusto. He literally said the word gusto. I'm pretty sure there was a twinkle in his eye while he said it. And I felt 2 contradictory things each time my group met. I thought, this is impossible. We do not have enough time. And I also thought, this is fun. I like these people. They're smart and funny. And we somehow did it, all of us, with gusto. Will told you about some of the projects. They are awesome. They are timely. I hope they all happen. Stay tuned. And the reason we were able to do it was because I think we were given constraints that forced us to approach it playfully, not to take it or ourselves too seriously, despite the fact that we're talking about critically important issues and systems. It was collaborative, and it was fun, and it was deeply serious all at the same time. And in our very last class, last Friday, Dr. Royce Lee, a psychiatrist here at the U of C Medical Center, who's an expert on the brain and how trauma shapes it and the toll that all this takes on caregivers, talked about the importance of networks in how we learn and think, and about the importance of play. How play is exquisitely designed to provide the perfect container for our learning, and how connecting a sense of play to what we do every day is a way to combat burnout and unlock new learning and inspiration. It was a moment that felt more like remembering something I've always known than learning something new. It kind of made my whole CLA experience make sense, both what had been important about it and how we could use it moving forward. We are living through a time of extraordinary challenge. There is pain and devastation shaping the work we all do, especially in the last 3 years. There's also strength and resolve, even as the racism and trauma and injustice causing all of this continues to play out all around us and in our own institutions. This work is hard. We do it while grappling with how our own identities are privileged or erased in our own institutions. We work in complicated, imperfect places, in a complicated, imperfect city, at a complicated, imperfect time. In the midst of all this, 2023 Fellows, we have been given the gift and the challenge of time apart to reflect and learn and form new relationships with people like us and people unlike us. We've been given the invitation, at least in moments, to consider ourselves and our work playfully, to simultaneously acknowledge that what we do is critical and that the stakes could not be higher, but also that in the work we do with and for our neighbors, there is joy. And there is renewal in relationships with others that care as deeply as we do. There are new possibilities for connection in our own work. Sometimes it takes stepping back, being playful for just a moment to see them. There's a question I've asked myself throughout this experience, and especially the last couple weeks as it's been ending. What are you going to do with this? Maybe you've asked yourself this question or had someone else ask you. It can sound like an accusation, like I should already know exactly what to do next. What are you going to do with this? But there's another way to ask this question, another inflection and a whole other set of meanings. We can ask ourselves and each other the same question, but from a place of joy and playfulness. Not, what are you going to do with this? But, what are you going to do with this? It's a question you can ask while smiling. It's a question you can ask to make someone else smile. We've all been given an extraordinary gift, the gift of each other, 29 other people I might not have met any other way, but without whom I can't imagine my life now. The gift of 240 CLA alumni who are walking some of the same paths on which we find ourselves now. The gift of Sadia and Will and Hopi and Sammy who are already working hard to find the 30 lucky souls who will receive this gift next year. My friends, for us, CLA is ending, and it's also just beginning. The work we do is serious, and the stakes are really high. Leadership is hard, and it is lonely, but it can also be playful and joyful, and a way to connect with others from the truest parts of ourselves. In fact, it needs to be. So when it gets really lonely, really uncertain, let's remind each other. Let's ask each other with a playful smile, what are you going to do with this? What are we going to do with this?
Thank you, JC, for those remarks. That was lovely. I'm Hopi. I'm a program associate at the Center for Effective Government, and I'd like to invite Will and Sadia to join me on stage and the first row of graduating fellows to kind of line up to receive your certificates. I think these ones. Yeah. This is the moment. All right. First up is JC Aevaliotis with the Pope Brothers Foundation. Next up is Natalie Barrera, who could not be here tonight, but give her a clap with the Better Chicago. Cindy Cambrai, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Lizette Carretero, The Resurrection Project. Oh, doing photos. Kathy Chan with Cook County Health. Dion Dawson with Dion Chicago Dream. Okay. Clancy Disa with the Seminary Co-op Bookstores. Armando Garcia with Chicago House and Social Service Agency, also our Waldorf Foundation fellow. Raquel Garcia Alvarez with Forest Preserves of Cook County. Kenneth Jilks Jr. with ITAB Development and our WF Fund Fellow. Shelley Hughes with the Chicago Public Library. Oh. Nina Idamudia with the Chicago Department of Planning and Development. Kira Joshi, Cook County Department of Public Health. Christina Kappa, Cook County Justice Advisory Council. Next person up is Ricardo Lopez with the Chicago Department of Housing. He could not be here tonight, but we'll give him a clap. Mike Martin, Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Libby Massey, Chicago Public Schools. Nick Roberts Mathutis, Cook County Office of the President. Lakeisha McFadden, Centers for New Horizons. Kimberly Morris, Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives. Oh, you got the big cheer. Sharice Pryor, Office of the Illinois Governor. Congratulations. Mira Raja with P33. Congratulations. Lauren Raymond, Floyd Card Review Board. Chelsea Ridley, Open Books and Lawndale Pop-Up Spot, and our Jessica Breyer Scholar. Luis Roman, JB and MK Pritzker Family Foundation. You got the Vernon Schleier, Law Office of the Cook County Public Defender. Thank you. Jamie Simone, Trust for Public Land. Lindsay Sloan with Brightpoint. You know the new title. Jared Smith, Chicago Police Department. Oh my God. Oh. And our last fellow in the lineup is Jorge Valdivia, who could also not be here tonight, from the Chicago Theater Alliance. Claps for him. And that is CLA 2023. Congratulations. Congrats. Thank you all so much. So this concludes the formal program for this evening. Another huge thank you to everyone who makes CLA possible, our community of alumni, faculty, and our partners. And to all of us who joined virtually, thank you so much. For everyone in the room, please make your way back upstairs for some food and drink, and enjoy the night. Thank you.